I'm Rob
Okay.
Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Oscar winner Barry Levinson, who is nominated for a DGA award for the premiere episode of Dopesick entitled First Bottle. Barry, you are one of a number of directors collectively bringing this show to life. Your contribution to the overall look and feel of the show is significant, though, because you're bringing the first episode to life with the pilot, which establishes the look and feel. Talk us through the specific challenges of taking the reins on a first episode of a series like this.
Well, I mean, you are laying the groundwork, for all of it. And so the question becomes style. What is the style that we're going to be, working with? We're going to be moving in and out of time. How do we want to handle that? Because we're jumping, back X number of years forward, so and so years, and all of those things. And so how do we balance it so it doesn't become some kind of abrupt things and we're losing the continuity of the piece. So you have to begin to say, how do we do this so that yes, okay, now we're going back and we found out this is what the investigation was doing, and X number of years before that, this is where the townspeople and what was going on. So it is, in a sense, you're trying to lay it out in a way that in subsequent, I did the first two, but in the subsequent episodes, it'll all continue to fit together. And so you have to kind of think down the road, how do we do this? How do we handle that? What the dynamics that we're going to bring to this? And then, of course, you have you're going to have an arc of characters and the behavior and all of that. In other words, so we're seeing in the first episode, for instance, if you're talking about Michael Keaton's character, this is where he is here, but there's going to be this whole arc to that performance. So where do we want to start with him? So it's all of that kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, how do we want to lay in this music that's going to fit? And then they can ultimately, if they make decisions, later, there seems to be a continuity to it all. So it all seems of one big piece.
Absolutely. And then I think back to the way the series first opens in 1986 with a raspy voiced Richard Sackler, played beautifully by Michael Stuhlbarg, maybe not beautifully, but terrifyingly, who says the time has come to redefine the nature of pain. If you don't know who the Sacklers are, you think, oh, that sounds so altruistic and that sounds great. Of course, it goes completely awry. And I just wonder what you most valued about opening the series in this way, quietly, without too many fireworks, setting the scene for a corporate drug lord to begin corroding at the fabric of American society.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question. When I read that, and I thought it was, Danny wrote that speech, and I thought we need to find a way where we're not, it's almost a statement, for the show in a way, that this is the plan. So I felt that you didn't want to start cutting it up right away. We'll cut to this, and here's in the room is like, just stay on him, and then just slowly keep pulling back. Where the hell is he? Who is he talking to? And let that settle in. So you wanted to find a way to create a sense of drama, but not melodrama. So it's a very subtle kind of moving back and back until you realize there are people in the room, et cetera. And then you're doing it. So it was a statement in a way that this is where this is going to go, and find the most simplistic possible way to do that. Not try to be fancy, not try to infuse it with things. Just let's sit. This is the Sackler character who ultimately comes up with this idea, and let's take our time, and let's hope that if we build it correctly, it's the step by step.
Yeah, it was so amazing that it worked for me because I was immediately invested. Stuhlbarg does such a great job I felt like I was watching Darth Vader. He's just so menacing, and he's so quiet and quietly spoken. He talked about the epidemic of suffering And then, of course, we find out that the epidemic they create is so much worse than the epidemic of suffering. I wonder what your personal reaction to this story was when you first became involved, because as I was mentioning to Danny, your colleague on this series, I learned a hell of a lot about the opioid crisis that I just really had no idea. What about you?
Well, I mean, I thought I knew, but I didn't when I started to read what Danny, was working on. So then there was the insides of it that I did not know. I didn't know that this is what took place at Purdue. I didn't know that these intentional steps were taking place. I didn't know about the cause and effect to the degree that the series ultimately laid out. And so for me, there was that learning curve. And once I thought sometimes you think you know something and then you go, no, you don't really know. You only know the baby steps of what took place. I mean, how the government allowed certain things to take place. I didn't know about that. Somehow I'm naive that think that we're going to be protected, and when in fact they allowed them to put on the label less than 1% addictive, etc. I mean, I was shocked when I said, really, a government agency did this? How did that happen? Of course, the piece plays out and explains it. So I have to say that on face value that I was naive to the machinations that in fact took place.
Yeah, and I mean, I know what OxyContin is all about. I know about the suffering. What I didn't understand was how the system feels so rigged to enable the corporate America and the almighty dollar above all else. And it then brings me to this. So on the one hand, you're telling a story on television to entertain us, but you're also bringing important subject matter to life. Is it difficult to balance the desire to entertain and engage while also staying true to the facts as much as possible?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a good question. It's an obligation in my mind that you have to find a way to entertain without it seemingly being entertaining, if you know what I mean. In other words, you don't want to suddenly feel like, look, I'm really kind of a little playing some games here and tricks. You want to somehow lay it out with a certain credibility to characters, not villains and heroes. These were people. This is what went on. This is the cause and effect. And to find a way that you're telling it, you're engaging an audience, but you're not showing, the flashes of things and like got to keep it going and etc., which is an obligation of other forms of filmmaking. So you're trying to find that credibility to all of the characters and the locations and the cinematography. So it's not that you're not paying attention to it. You're just involved in these characters and the consequence. And so there's that thin line, because you don't want it to suddenly become, it's too boring and it's too whatever. How do you keep that audience engaged without, you've seen certain things that can be, far more, vividly wild, and you can't do that here because then you kill the credibility, and the credibility goes out the window. And we've got to have an investment in the credibility on all sides of these characters that we're seeing portrayed in this miniseries.